him Olufemi Gbajabiamila. God bless you all.
It's good to be with you on this edition of House Ticket, coming your way on the NTA Parliament. The House of Representatives has kick-started the collation of stakeholder submissions and opinion on the Petroleum Industry Bill, PIB, through public engagements. This package of the program will therefore review the journey of the PIB in the 9th House of Representatives, as the lawmakers have promised a bill that will be people-oriented. They have also promised its passage by the first quarter of 2021. We'll also have a report of a coronation ceremony of a lawmaker. Stay tuned for the full package right after this time out.
If we set our minds right, embrace each other in love and brotherhood, we will come through these troubling times. We will survive, we will recover, and then we will thrive. One nation under God, free, peaceful, and prosperous.
The Petroleum Industry Bill, PIB, is one of the bills penciled down by the 9th House of Representatives as a goal it intends to score in the reforms of the laws of the land. Work on the bill has commenced, and from the look of things, the lawmakers look set to make good their promise to Nigerians. On this first part of the program, we'll review the journey of the PIB, starting with its introduction into the 9th House of Representatives and the issues raised during the debate at second reading. We'll also take reports of stakeholders' engagement with various groups who came calling on the House and tabled areas of focus for consideration during the legislative work on the bill. The report.
The 9th House of Representatives acknowledged the receipt of the Petroleum Industry Bill 2020 from the Presidency Tuesday, the 29th of September 2020.
This bill combines in a single tone aspects of significant reforms to the laws governing the Nigerian petroleum industry that were previously set out in two distinct draft legislation, namely the Petroleum Industry Bill 2020 and the Petroleum Industry Fiscal Bill 2020. While I trust that the House of Representatives will, in their usual expeditious manner, favorably consider the passage of this bill into law, please accept, Right Honorable Speaker, the assurances of my highest consideration.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, had encouraged all constituents, Nigerians and stakeholders alike, to join in the task of nation building by participating in the legislative processes of considering the critical amendments of the bill.
Reforms of the oil and gas sector and the electricity and power sector that keep the heavy hand of government from undermining the proper operation of free markets must be encouraged. We recognize that some of these reforms will increase the living costs for many at a time when people are struggling to cover the costs of daily life. We will work with the executive to develop and implement measures to support people that need help and ensure that the most vulnerable among us can get through this interregnum with dignity. Even more importantly, the House will exercise our oversight authority to hold people's feet to the fire and deliver outcomes that are worthy of the sacrifices we are asking of the Nigerian people.
A month later, Thursday, October 8, 2020 to be precise, President Muhammadu Buhari at a joint session of the National Assembly during the 2021 National Budget presentation had expressed satisfaction at the zeal of the representatives to passing the Petroleum Industry Bill. That this time around, previous challenges mitigating its passage by past assemblies will be addressed. The President said the resulting global economic recession, low oil prices and heightened global economic uncertainty have had important implications for the nation's economy. The benefits of passing the PIB into law will therefore be an added advantage to the national financial growth Nigeria seeks.
Let me emphasize that revenue generation remains our major challenge. Nevertheless, government is determined to tackle the persistent problems with domestic resource mobilization, as there is a limit to deficit financing through borrowing. The time has come for us to maintain a healthy balance between meeting our growing expenditure commitments and our long-term public financial health.
Lawmakers also believe that boosting revenue generation through blocking of revenue leakages, including in the oil and gas sector, will play a vital role in financing the budget and addressing deficits. The PIB, therefore, coming into effect as a law, should help these issues to be taken seriously.
The PIB has taken care of a lot of things. All the leakages will block them. So by the time that one is done, we will have more revenue. And by the grace of God, once the agreement is signed between us and the investors, we'll be able to get more revenue and the leakages will reduce to minimum.
The review is the fact that most agencies spend their IGR rather than remitting it to the CRF. So we believe that strongly that that is not good. It's not good for us, and we cannot allow that to continue.
The bill was then slated for second reading in the House on Tuesday, the 24th of November 2020. It was formally titled A Bill for an Act to Provide for Legal Governance, Regulatory and Fiscal Framework for the Nigerian Petroleum Industry, the Development of Host Communities, and for Related Matters. The House leader, who led the debate on the general principles of the bill, took time to enumerate some of the innovations in the bill while reiterating the resolve of the Ninth Assembly to break in the jinx that has led to the inability of the bill to survive passage in previous assemblies. Debates on the bill touch on employment opportunity for Nigerians, socio-economic challenges of the South-South region, tasking international oil companies on community service in the region, amongst others.
Now there is going to be very clear-cut parameters and clear-cut definition of host communities and what is going to accrue to them.
If the opportunities we had in the 80s, 90s, when we constructed a 5,000-kilometer pipeline in this country that transports petroleum products from the refineries and crude oil products from the crude tanks to the refineries and from refineries to depots. When as at that time, Mr. Speaker, the area managers of NNPC who were managing the depots were like lords. If the PIB will cure it by way of the midstream, I'm for it.
2.5% of their previous year expenditure will be provided for the host community. In that 2.5%, it's specifically stated that 75% is for development projects, while 20% is reserve fund, while only 5% will be used for the management of the trust fund.
Others spoke to the urgent need for a maximum utilization of the nation's petroleum resources in view of the fact that the world is going green in less than 20 years. The bill was voted on after a considerable time spent in the debate, and it was referred to the ad hoc committee on the PIB, chaired by the chief whip of the House, lawmaker Muhammad Tahir Monguno, and deputized by Representative Victor Nwokolo.
Ayes have it.
The ad hoc committee on the PIB consists of 30 lawmakers comprising at least one member from each geopolitical zone of the country. Meanwhile, stakeholders' engagements, on the other hand, have been taking place between the representatives and the people over the urgent need to pass the PIB into law. An instance is the visit to the office of the Speaker by the Oil Producers Trade Section under the Lagos State Chamber of Commerce and Industry. In the discussions that came up, the need for an amendment of the PIB was emphasized, just as other issues came up like royalties, tax, NNPC methods of handling liabilities, segregation of the upstream and downstream, complexities in the implementation of the PIB, and preservation of the oil and gas business in Nigeria. The leader of the delegation and chairman of the OPTS, Mike Sangster, had earlier raised concerns over the state of petroleum industry bill and its component expressing concerns that if not amended to incorporate present-day realities and challenges, it will negatively affect Nigeria's competitiveness in the global market. He noted that the bill in its present form doesn't provide the environment for future investments, hence amending the bill is positive as it represents the much-needed reforms in the sector.
Many thanks for staying tuned. The program is still House Ticket and we've been reviewing the consideration of the Petroleum Industry Bill PIB. We took you through the introduction of the bill into the legislature and the debates that followed on the bill to enable a second reading and passage at the House of Representatives. On this segment, we will review the recent public hearing conducted on the bill where stakeholders converged for 2 days to contribute to the general principles of the bill. This is amongst lawmakers' commitments to seeing that they break the jinx associated with the lack of will to pass the bill in the legislature. The 2 days public hearing, which held on the 27th and 28th of January 2021, gathered stakeholders from the oil industry, Niger Delta host communities, as well as members of the executive and interested parties from the general public. The Speaker at the opening of the event said the House would, during its consideration of the PIB, protect Nigeria and Nigerians' interests despite vested opinions and interest in the bill. He also bemoaned the underperformance of the potentials of the industry. The Speaker advocated maximizing the opportunities in the industry before it fades out. He also said fulfilling the responsibilities owed the host communities has become imperative so as to correct past mistakes. A commitment of passing the bill by April of 2021 was made as the Speaker promised that this would be done without compromising the thoroughness of the consideration process. The chairman of the committee, while welcoming guests to the hearing, said the passage of the bill is long overdue as it has been under consideration for over 20 years. He therefore called on stakeholders to make submissions of interest to them whilst justifying those opinions and at the same time bring up recommendations that will stand the test of time.
As a committee, we will not preempt you. However, whatever contributions you make here will be reflected in our presentations to the House.
Day one of the public hearing saw stakeholder submissions from the executive arm of government through the representation of the State Minister Petroleum Resources, NNPC, amongst other government agencies and state governments. The Minister of State Petroleum Resources called for unity in purpose from all involved, whilst he said that Nigeria must get it right with the bill this time around. Being an executive bill, the minister took time to enumerate some of its objectives and what the bill seeks to cure in the industry.
The bill is designed to guarantee early revenues for government, clarify roles, and simplify administration of the sector, infuse transparency and predictability in regulation, ensure equity and fairness for all industry players, and mandate the rules-based responsiveness of regulators.
Others include enable frontier exploration, infuse transparency and non-confidentiality, transform NNPC into a viable, commercially based and self-sustaining national oil company, institute a strong regulatory framework with increased emphasis on midstream development, create an effective midstream and downstream licensing system, mandate improved environmental measures, assist host communities in petroleum operation areas to achieve their aspirations. The Group Managing Director of the NNPC submitted that recent forecast projects oil demand in another 30 years up to about 100 million barrels per day. However, its uses will change and only companies with the most effective laws will benefit from the relevance of the oil.
Yes, and the reality that is unfolding today is that this economy is growing. We have a huge population that is growing. We have 70% of our population below the age of 30, and then the future is really great. And what we can do today is to focus on deepening our midstream and downstream. That means, bringing more gas into our domestic market. Yes, there's room for export, but there's a market for the domestic gas as we make progress. And this is part of the provisions that we have in the petroleum industry legislation, Mr. Speaker.
The GMD added that worthy of considering in the bill is the fact that there is the need for clear legislation and framework in the upstream, midstream and downstream sectors, as investors will only be comfortable when they have clarity of laws to make investment decisions. State governments from the oil-producing regions sent in their submissions through their representatives. They all lauded the provisions of the bill while re-emphasizing critical areas that host communities need attention on.
We also believe that certain aspect of the surveillance contract must be given to them. A whole lot of jobs should be made exclusive for them, manpower and related areas. That will help them manage the issue of tension in those areas.
We are proposing an amendment that it should read the property and ownership of petroleum within Nigeria and its territorial water, continental shelf, exclusive economic zone, and that should be vested in the government of the federation and the government of the petroleum producing state for and on behalf of the people. The reason for this is that the government and people of the host communities have a major stake in the ownership of the mineral resources in their land, territorial water, continental shelf, and exclusive economic zone. This is key.
The 2.5% fund to be received by host communities where oil is explored on the basis of actual operating expenditure is grossly inadequate. We are therefore recommending that it should be moved upwards to 10%.
At the second day of the hearing, host communities under different groups had their turns to submit their positions on the bill. Their opinions were hinged on peculiarities in the different host communities, while emphasizing on 10% equity for the region.
Jere is a community in Ethiopia West Council of Delta State. We are very popular because of the incident of 1998, where we lost over 1,500 people in a fire outbreak. And I am here to say, the oil company that is working in my place, please help us beg them to employ my sons and daughters so that I can have peace. I adopt my position. I plead with you people to help our kingdom so that the peace in the Niger Delta can be sustained. Involve our people and there will be peace in the Niger Delta.
We are left behind. A lot of the time, we now have to resort to means that are not constructive. This will not be helpful. Please listen to us, hear us, recognize us as stakeholders. Otherwise, we will not be solving the problem.
We want to align ourselves. I want to emphasize it. We are aligning ourselves with the structure provided in the PIB for reaching out to host communities. Host communities have not been impacted for several years of operations going on. This is the only sure guarantee way that host communities will be impacted.
Other stakeholders at the 2 days public hearing included the Oil Producers Trade Section, OPTS, operating under the Lagos State Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The objective, said the OPTS, is to strengthen the long-term health of the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. They applauded the effort of government in this regard. OPTS was taken up by the Speaker regarding its allusion to a one-sided agreement by Nigeria in the PIB.
I am aware that we've had a problem with agreements hitherto that which we ran into trouble because it didn't lean towards our laws. And we're all very familiar with the PNID agreement and the that almost cost us 9 billion or thereabouts, which ended up being, for want of a better word, almost a sham agreement. So that was the lesson for us, and I believe that's the intent or the raison d'etre, like they say, of this particular clause or that you call one-sided. If you can clarify what you mean by a one-sided agreement and what would make it a lot more attractive for your industry, I would definitely like to know, in view of what has happened to us in the past when we didn't have this one-sided agreements.
Those comments refer to some of the powers of the Commission or the authority, where our interpretation of the PIB is that the Commission has the power to be both the prosecutor and the judge. So they can, if they feel the company has violated the terms of the PIB, they can effectively charge the company and impose the penalties without any recourse to the legal system. So our request here is that there's a system which works already very well in the country. There will always be disputes between different operators and governments. I think it's quite natural given the size of our industry. But our request really is the Commission has the power to, let's say, to declare the violation of the law, of the act, but then it should be up to the courts to decide on whether the company is guilty and what the punishment should be. At the moment, all that resides with the Commission and the authority.
Union and trade bodies alike also presented their views and interests. The Nigerian Labour Congress, NLC, decried the lack of inclusion of unions in the new draft bill, and the Women in Energy Network demanded gender parity.
The provision for aggregation of funds for the authority, Section 47, 2A to 2F, is confusing. What will be the source of the 1% levy? Is it, for example, separate from the infrastructural fund? I think it's important to highlight some of those things.
International oil companies operating in Nigeria were also present.
The ExxonMobil group of companies in Nigeria operates several joint venture concessions and some production sharing contracts. We have a proud history, and you may be familiar with our names. In one form or another, ExxonMobil, in its upstream business, has worked in Nigeria for over half a century. We are proud of that history and look forward to a promising future.
The committee is to continue engaging the general public on the discussions and considerations of the bill, as it has taken the liberty to create a website to be one of the platforms where stakeholders and interested members of the general public can download the text of the bill and also upload comments, input, and memorandum to same. That's the much we can take on the journey of the petroleum industry bill so far. Now we'll look into other recent events of the lawmakers while the recess lasts. Our last segment takes us to an event at Zaria Town, Kaduna State, where a lawmaker of the 9th House gets a traditional title of Ian Zazzau. The details.
Lawmakers and constituents have rejoiced with their own. Representative Abbas Tajuddin of the 9th House of Representatives during the occasion of his turbaning as the Ian Zazzau by the Zazzau Emirate Council. For constituents, they rejoiced with their representative for the traditional feat as they praised his commendable representation of them at the federal level.
Abbas Tajuddin, member representing Zaria Federal Constituency, is a man of honor, man of trust, a trustworthy somebody, It is this trustworthiness that people of Zaria sees in him. They sent him to Abuja to represent them. And giving him this title will encourage him and will give him the power and zeal to help the people in different kind of their life perspectives.
Allah ya bashi iyan zazzau, shi kuma sa'i Allah ya bashi sa'i, so ba abin da za mu ce sai dai mai martaba munna fiye da yadda ba mu zato.
The turbaning ceremony had earlier been performed at the palace of the Emir of Zazzau. The title of Ear is a position bestowed on one who has distinguished himself in leadership and benevolence to his people. Lawmaker Abbas Tajuddin was turbaned amongst other titles to other worthy sons of Kaduna, including Talban Zazzau, Dangoruban Zazzau, Magajin Garin Zazzau, and Sa'in Zazzau, amongst others. The Emir of Zazzau, His Royal Highness Ahmad Nuba Mali, in his remarks at the coronation ceremony, spoke of the task ahead for the new traditional title holders, just as he expressed satisfaction at their worthiness.
Kowa ya dace a sarautar da ya samu, muna fata za a rike wannan amana da muka ba ku, kuma da fatan Allah ya sa a zauna lafiya.
A Durbar ceremony took place immediately after the turbaning ceremony, where the new title holders rode on beautifully decorated horses. Lawmaker Abbas Tajuddin represents Zaria Federal Constituency of Kaduna State in the House of Representatives. He is currently the chairman, House Committee on Land Transport, and a member of several other standing committees of the House.
Hope we have been able to bring you up to speed on the activities of our lawmakers in recent times. The House of Representatives is expected to resume plenary sitting this week, Tuesday, 9 February 2021. Details of the resumption week alongside other activities within and outside the legislature will come your way in subsequent editions of the program House Ticket. Many thanks for staying tuned, and please stay safe out there. COVID-19 is real. Let's meet again next time. Bye-bye.